Hi, welcome back to my podcast within 5 minutes. This is your host, Harsh Patel, who was missing from action for the last 31 days. I remember sitting on my table on Jan 1st thinking about how I'm going to expand this podcast. And since then, I've been trying to find the perfect time to release an episode, but that time never seemed to come. Since the start of this year, I have been experimenting and brainstorming ideas to make this podcast better. But somewhere in the process, I ended up diluting the content. And then I realized the reason I started this podcast. To have a library of thoughts where each episode was a standalone episode with unfiltered truth. And while there are hints of motivation, it should help me understand why I feel the way I feel. So I decided to do what I would like to listen to within 5 minutes. So here's a new episode with love from Harsh. Pessimism is a trait that can be found in many of us. From the colleague who always finds a way to see the downside of the corporate job, to the friend who always expects his favorite sports team to lose. The world is going to hell, man. I can't wait to see how we mess this up. I don't think I'm good enough. She deserves better. This job is the worst. A lot of people around us find it alluring to hear that shit is going down. Maybe you enjoy it. Maybe I do too. It gives us a sense of superiority and validation that we have a better understanding of the world and that our negative opinions are more accurate than those who are blindly optimistic. It's the pleasure of being right when you predict that things will go badly. We, as humans, tend to protect ourselves from disappointment. It is our defense mechanism. By expecting the worst, we are better prepared to handle the negative outcomes and be less disappointed if things don't go as planned. It's a form of realism. However, it leads to people putting in less effort into things and prevents them from reaching their full potential. Let's take a newspaper headline. The stock market, on its way to give historical returns, will be written off as nonsense. But the stock market to hit an all-time low this year will become the most read article of the agency. Pessimism just sounds smarter and more plausible for us to comprehend. The perspective of looking at the darker side helps identify potential weaknesses and flaws which can make arguments more rational. It is also more cautious and realistic, which makes you more trustworthy and persuasive. People are more likely to agree with you even though it may not be the answer they were looking for. Humans have made unbelievable progress from creating the internet to landing the first Mars rover to developing vaccines in record time, all in the last few decades. That's enough evidence to conclude that optimism might be getting more attention than pessimism. And yet, the scales tip in favor of the latter. The seduction of pessimism can be hard to resist because it's familiar and what we know. We all speak the language of pessimists, so it's hard to break out of that pattern. The majority of our attention and support goes to people who complain about the problems. That's human behavior. You give more attention and sympathy to the ones who need it. But the downside is that we end up creating these problems ourselves just to fulfill our needs. By dwelling on things that are insignificant, we distract ourselves from taking responsibility for our actions and escape from our own realities. Sometimes, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy where you feed fuel into the monster's belly. When you decide that something is most likely to go wrong, you're less likely to take action or put in the effort. There's no point in trying. You self-sabotage your relationships, career choices, and dreams because you let a little birdie whisper in your sweet soft ears. And when you finally realize that you're unhappy, you try to justify the lack of effort, saying that you had it coming. To get in check with our own tendencies towards pessimism, we need to start looking for contradictions that can cloud our certainty of a bad outcome. So, what if it works out? How much better will I be if things go as planned? Is there any base to my fears? Then why am I denying myself this chance? Challenge yourself and check for positive aspects of the situation. See the glass half full rather than half empty. A half empty cup may lead to a half empty life. Realize that negative thinking may be seductive, but it's not helpful or even accurate. The best decisions are often the hardest ones. So don't rid yourself of making difficult choices just because it feels like there's no upside. There is. You just can't see it from where you are. Being highly optimistic is also an overkill. I came across something on social media the other day. Every dead person on the Himalayas was once a highly motivated person. So maybe calm down. I'm sure it was meant to be taken as a joke, but it definitely got my gray cells working. What we need is balance. Consider both the positive and negative aspects of a situation rather than focusing on one over the other. Set realistic expectations and be open to the fact that things may not go as planned. Even negative thoughts can be reframed in a more positive light. Control the narrative because you are what you think. I hope this episode gave you a fresh little perspective. This is the first of many things to come. If you like what you hear, I hope you can rate this podcast. And again, if you're waiting on something, let me remind you. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Take the moment and make it perfect. If you'd like to follow me on my social media, you can head out to Instagram and follow my handle within 5 minutes. I hope you have a good day. I'll see you in the next episode soon. Bye bye.